Section 4. Planning, Policies, and Regulations. This section is an introduction to some of the most commonly cited city regulations or policies that impact whether an application is approved. We will introduce the most common plans, zoning, California Environmental Quality Act, and other regulations that may impact your project. Overview. Now that you understand what the development review process, it is important to have a general understanding on what regulations affect how your property can be developed. 3 main topics of this section. 1. Introduction to planning. Provides an overview of planning in the City of Milpitas, including the difference between current planning and long-range planning. 2. Introduction to zoning. Explains the code and introduces zone districts, such as residential versus non-residential zoning, and how your project's location affects the development and building standards. 3. Planning with the environment. The protection of California's resources is vital. This section will highlight complicating factors that may impact your development, such as hillside development, California Environmental Quality Act, tree removal, and the management of stormwater on your property. Introduction to planning. The Planning Department of Milpitas's mission is to prepare and plan for the future of the city, while addressing the immediate concerns and developments of today. These services are described as long-range or current planning. Long-range planning as the process of identifying and articulating community vision and values that guide how the city will evolve over a long period of time, often as far out as 20 to 30 years. Long-range planning staff works with the community to identify a vision, goals, and a growth strategy that will guide future development in the city. Long-range planning includes preparing, maintaining, and updating the general plan, including the housing element, specific plans, and design guidelines and standards. Drafting new zoning ordinances to amend the zoning code, keep it up to date, and ensure the city has the tools to implement the vision, goals, and policies in the long-range plans. Work with other city departments to prepare citywide master plans such as the Climate Action Plan, Utilities Master Plan, Trails, Pedestrian, and Bicycle Master Plan, etc. Current planning. As the process of implementing the vision of the City of Milpitas as it develops. During the development review process, planning staff reviews applications for consistency with the general plan, any applicable specific plans, design standards, and the zoning code to ensure that the project is consistent with the vision the community expressed during long-range planning. These regulations guide where development can occur, to what degree areas can change, and the use, size, and location of new buildings. Current planning includes facilitating the development review process, which involves reviewing applications for consistency with the general plan, specific plans, zoning code, and design guidelines and standards, ensuring projects will not have an adverse impact on the environment through California Environmental Quality Act, issuing permits for projects meeting all the city's regulations, providing counsel to the public, applicants, architects, and developers at the front counter, one-stop permit center, over the phone, and via email. Long-term planning influences the development review process. Specific area plans. Specific plans provide recommendations and policies for specific areas of the city and address topics including land use, design guidelines, streetscape design, parks, circulation, and transportation for the specific area. Milpitas has 2 specific plans. The Milpitas Gateway Main Street Specific Plan provides a new vision for Midtown, which is the historic commercial and industrial core of the city. The Milpitas Metro Specific Plan, formerly Transit Area Specific Plan, addresses the redevelopment of the southern portion of the city near the Great Mall Shopping Center and Milpitas Transit Center. If your project is located in the areas indicated in the specific plans, there will be additional design guidelines and development considerations beyond the base regulations of the zoning code. Zoning code. The guidelines, vision, and goals from the general plan for the future of the city are the basis of the zoning code, which is categorized into zoning districts to further explain various areas of the city. Current planning applies the zoning code in approving permits and guiding applicants through the development review process. Introduction to zoning. Zoning classifies the city into zoning districts that regulate the type of buildings and land uses allowed on a site and establish appropriate development standards to guide new development. Milpitas Municipal Code. The Milpitas Zoning Code is part of the Milpitas Municipal Code and describes the legal uses of property in Milpitas, establishes various districts, and defines appropriate regulations for each district regarding building type, height and bulk, parking, land uses, and required open spaces for each district. Compliance with this ordinance is mandatory. Transitional zoning. This applies to areas from the general and specific area plans that are evolving in how the zone districts are categorized based on the future goals and vision of the city. Contact a city planner if you believe this is applied to your zone district to better understand how development standards are affected. Zone districts. Zone districts categorize the types of land uses allowed for a property. Each district has specific standards, allowable uses, and other requirements that guide development on your site. Each zone district is color-coded on the zoning map and has a corresponding letter that is described within the Milpitas City Code. What zone district is my property? To find your property's zoning district. 1. Open the zoning map on the city website. 2. Find your property using a street address or major surrounding street names. 3. Locate the color your property is shaded in the legend to see your zoning district. This will help show you what types of planning permits you might need to submit for project approval. 4. Visit the One-Stop Building Permit Center or contact a planner by phone for assistance. Introduction to zoning. Residential zone districts. Below are examples of how residential zones of Milpitas are organized based on type, size, and density. Mixed-use zoning, MXD, are areas where residential and commercial uses are shared within a certain zone. Non-residential zone districts. These zones are considered non-residential, however some zones such as mixed-use and town center allow for new or existing residential developments and structures. Introduction to zoning. Understanding the zoning code. 1. Find what type of zoning district your property is located in using the City of Milpitas interactive zoning map online. 2. After you identify the zoning district for your property, for example, R1 or mixed-use zoning 2, locate the applicable development standards in the Milpitas Municipal Code under Chapter 10, Zoning Ordinance. 3. Locate the use regulations table for your specific zoning district. Use tables are presented in the zoning code and are usually organized by land use categories that share similar physical or operating features. As shown in this example table, you can find your zoning district designation on the column heading of the use table, and then look at the list of uses in the left column of the table that matches your proposed use to find the approval requirement for the use. 4. Understand if the project requires a conditional use permit. When you see the letter C within the land use table, this means that you can proceed with that project but require a conditional use permit. A conditional use permit is a zoning exception that allows the property to be developed in a way not otherwise permitted within the particular zoning district. 5. Learn the development standards for your zoning district. Each zoning district has its own set of development standards such as setbacks and building heights. There are also general development standards that apply to all zoning districts such as parking, accessory structures, fences and walls, trash enclosures, and lighting. 6. Determine if your property is subject to special development standards from specific plans, overlay zoning districts, or planned developments. Identify the applicable design guidelines and standards. Projects in the specific plan areas are subject to the applicable specific plan design guidelines. All multi-family residential developments and mixed-use developments with a residential component are subject to the city's objective design standards. Planning with the environment. CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. What is California Environmental Quality Act? California Environmental Quality Act is a set of regulations that helps govern the protection of California's natural resources because we must take care of our air, water, and planet. For a development project, CEQA help determine whether an activity is subject to environmental review, what steps are involved in the environmental review process, and the required content of environmental documents. All projects must comply with CEQA. Is my project exempt from CEQA? A project may be considered exempt from CEQA or may need an extensive review process depending on the project scale and its potential impact to the environment. Typically, minor projects are exempt from CEQA, and categorical exemption is determined by planning staff. If your project is exempt from CEQA, you can proceed with the development review process with no environmental review. Projects that aren't exempt will require further study to determine if the project will have significant environmental impacts. Common exemption categories include existing facilities involving negligible or no expansion of an existing use, replacement or reconstruction of existing structures, new construction or conversion of small structures, minor alterations to land, accessory structures, minor land divisions, and infill development projects that meet certain conditions. Some common examples of exemptions include interior or exterior alterations such as plumbing and electrical work to existing facilities, additions to existing structures if the addition does not result in an increase of more than 2,500 square feet, replacement of a commercial structure with a new structure that is the same size, purpose, and capacity, single-family homes in a residential zone, or a multi-family structure that has no more than 4 units, accessory structures such as garages, carports, patios, swimming pools, and fences. Minor lot line adjustments, side yard, and setback variances not resulting in the creation of any new parcel. Further CEQA study required if your project will require a negative declaration or mitigated negative declaration, MND, if it will not result in significant and unavoidable impacts to the environment. The city will hire an environmental consultant, at your cost, to prepare the required documentation. Following a public review period of 20-30 days, the decision-making body will consider the negative declaration or MND along with your project at a public hearing. Your project will require an environmental impact report, EIR, if it will result in significant and unavoidable impacts to the environment even with mitigation. The process for an EIR is similar to a negative declaration or MND except the public review period is 30-45 days. Also, a final EIR to address all comments received and a statement of overriding considerations to explain why a project is approved even with significant and unavoidable impacts are required. Planning with the environment. Site considerations. Sometimes certain lots and parcels by natural design or previous construction do not always adhere to existing city codes. Factors such as these can include developing on a hillside or over earthquake fault lines. Seismic issues/fault zones. The Alcas-Priolo Earthquake Fault Zoning Act, 1972, and the Seismic Hazards Mapping Act, 1990, directs the state geologist to delineate regulatory zones of required investigation to assist cities, counties, and state agencies in fulfilling their responsibilities for protecting the public safety from the effects of earthquake-triggered ground failure. Check with city staff to confirm if your property is located in a fault zone or any area susceptible to geologic hazards such as liquefaction or landslides. If your property is located in one of these areas, a preliminary geotechnical report with recommended design measures may be required. Hillside/geotechnical lots. If the project's location is on a hillside lot, there are complicating factors that will add more steps, required documentation, and fees to the development review process. CEQA also plays a large role in these types of projects. Projects located in the hillside combining district require site and architectural approval by the Planning Commission and City Council and are subject to the city's hillside ordinance in addition to the regulations of the base zoning district. The hillside ordinance provides requirements related to grading, density, height, floor area, setbacks, open space and landscaping, parking and driveways, fencing, and lighting. These requirements are intended to preserve and minimize impacts to Milpitas hillsides. Understanding the complexities of hillside lot development requires additional assistance from the planning, building safety and housing, and engineering departments. You will know if your property is located in the hillside combining district on the Milpitas zoning map if it is labeled HLD, HVL, or HMD. Removal process, public property. The city's Public Works Department is responsible for removing and pruning street and heritage trees. It is unlawful for a resident to prune or remove a street tree. If the tree is located on city right-of-way and poses a hazard or nuisance to your property or has become diseased or unsightly, please contact the Public Works Department at 408-586-2600 or submit a request on the My Milpitas mobile phone application. Removal application checklist, private property. Completed application form and fees. The property owner must complete and sign the form for each removal project. Submit the application fee. Landscape professional memo. A professional should confirm that the removal of the tree is necessary and include every item listed above. Site plan and description. Clearly describe your reason for removing the tree and include a site plan of your property indicating the location of each tree. This site plan should also include your replacement plan, demonstrating a 2:1 replacement ratio for all trees removed and showing where the new trees will be planted. Planning with the environment. Properties in flood zones. Certain areas have been designated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, as Special Flood Hazard Areas, SFHA. Approximately 1/4 of the city is within these flood zones. SFHAs are by definition areas within the 100 YEAR flood boundary as mapped by FEMA. A 100 YEAR flood refers to a flood level with a 1% or greater chance of being equaled or exceeded in any given year. There is a 26% chance that a structure located in an SFHA will be inundated by a 100 YEAR flood during the life of a 30-year mortgage. In comparison, the risk of fire is approximately 5% in the same time period. Smaller floods have a greater chance of occurring in any given year and can still create a significant hazard to life and property. Flood zone map. Any proposed development within the Federal Emergency Management Agency's, FEMA, Special Flood Hazard Area, is subject to federal and the city's floodplain management requirements. The city's engineering department has an online map tool that allows you find the parcel S of your project site and see which flood zone it is in. C3 Stormwater Requirements. Provision C3 is a stormwater permit that seeks to reduce runoff and pollution through post-construction stormwater management requirements for new development and redevelopment projects. Single-family homes, interior remodeling projects, and routine maintenance repairs such as re-roofing and repaving are exempt from C3 stormwater requirement. Low-impact development, LID, designs projects are to help manage stormwater runoff. Examples of LID include green roofs, bioretention gardens, and permeable pavement. This is required for any project that creates replaces more than 10,000 plus SQ. FT. Of impervious surfaces, any restaurants, auto service facilities, retail gasoline outlets, and uncovered parking lot projects that create and or replace 5,000 square feet or more of impervious surface. The project applicant must provide application information and hydraulic calculations to the planning and engineering departments for review. Building codes and regulations. Building and Safety Adopted Building Code. All projects must adhere to local and state building codes. Speak with a representative at the permit center to help identify which codes apply to your building permits for your project. California Building Code, CBC. California Electrical Code, CEC. California Mechanical Code, CMC. California Plumbing Code, CPC. California Energy Code, KENC. California Fire Code, CFC. California Green Building Code, CalGreen. Milpitas Municipal Code, MMC. Accessory Dwelling Units, ADUs. ADUs are known by many names, including accessory dwelling unit, second unit, in-law unit, granny flat, casita, and backyard home. But, no matter what you call them, these are homes located on the same piece of property as another home. They provide a complete and permanent home for at least one person. An ADU may be established on any lot in any district that allows single-family or multi-family dwelling residential uses. A JADU may be established on any lot in any district that allows single-family residential use. Refer to the Milpitas ADU Toolkit online at our ADU Corner for more detailed information about accessory dwelling unit projects. If you are planning to build an ADU on your property, your project might need to go through the development review process depending if your ADU design does or does not follow certain design guidelines. If your ADU design deviates from the general requirements, that is, setback or building height, you will be required to obtain a minor site development permit through the development review process. Speak to a city staff representative at the permit center to better understand how the development review process will apply to your ADU build.